let's go to Liberal Senator for South Australia, Alex Antic. Alex, good to talk to you. How is it that we learn the lessons if we refuse to pick over all these decisions? It's an absolutely ridiculous bit of logic there from the Health Minister.
Yeah, look, it just doesn't make sense at all when you think about it, Chris. And we heard that today from this inquiry with the Senate Legislation, Legal and Constitutional Affairs Committee, which heard all this great evidence, heard it from the Human Rights Commission, Commissioner Finlay and others who made the observation that we have royal commissions and have had over the years for things like the HAH banking scenario, the UN Oil for Food program, and all the way through to any other number of different issues, all of which might be well meritorious in their own right. But if we've had anything more significant than COVID over the last generation, then I'd be surprised. And what is the logic behind not taking a root and branch approach to picking over this? I mean, so many people were affected. Everybody in the country was affected. We've got nurses that are still getting denied work. We heard stories today about nurses who are sleeping rough, living in their cars. The fallout from this is enormous. There were a lot of mistakes made across the board, across Australia, and there is really no excuse for not having a Royal Commission other than simply weaselling out of an election promise.
I tell you what, this is actually Orwellian, isn't it? Because one of the reasons we need a Royal Commission is because all of this was done to us during the pandemic in secret. We were never given the health advice. We had all these decisions just handed down to the public. There was no transparency, no accountability, no public debate about any of these measures. Yet now, their review, Labor's review, is just a hand-picked group of people doing this in private, and we don't know actually where the accountability or transparency is going to arise. It's Orwellian in the way they're conducting it. They're actually conducting this review in the same way we were run during the pandemic.
Yeah, that's right, behind a veil of secrecy. You're absolutely right, Chris. And in fact, we did some work through Freedom of Information applications here in South Australia, asking for the documents and the expert evidence used by the SA Health, Department of Health here, to make the decisions. You know, if you remember, and try not to traumatise yourself with the memory, but we here in South Australia were told that, in order to go into a room, you had to spin around 3 times, pat your head and rub your tummy and take off your mask, turn it around, spin on your head. There was never any expert evidence for that. It was people making these things up as they went along. And that's just the tip of the iceberg as to what a Royal Commission would find out. Commissioner Finlay made the point very well, I thought, that ultimately it's the highest form of inquiry, a Royal Commission. And if there is an incident in our history, other than a world war, which deserves a Royal Commission, this is it. And if the Albanese government were fair dinkum about preparing for the future, they would go ahead and have a proper Royal Commission, proper look at what happened so that we don't make the same mistakes we made, and there were plenty, Chris.
Yeah, spot on. Just quickly, in Canada, there's been a court decision which goes to all this, where it's been found that the Trudeau government there actually overstretched its powers against the population during COVID.
Yeah, that's right. And this is actually, I think, symbolic of what happened during the time during COVID. The use of the emergency has become the political weapon of choice over the last decade or so. We see that with the climate scam. We see that all the time with, things being so urgent that you don't have time to take a step back and have a look. We must destroy all of our coal-fired power and so on and so forth. And this is what we got out of COVID. It was such an emergency. Here in South Australia, for example, Parliament moved on the Emergency Management Act, an act which was always designed to cover bushfires, and we saw it all the way through the Western world, Canada being a particularly egregious example where the Trudeau government used emergency powers in order to step on the trucker movement, the freedom movement, froze bank accounts, moved them on and so forth, and the courts now intervened. Look, I think this is a lesson for policymakers in the future. We saw arbitrary decisions being made on these sorts of rallies in Australia, the freedom rallies, and rallies like the Right to Life rally here in Australia, the Walk for Life, were put through the ringer when it came to COVID requirements. The BLM marches went on without a hitch. Just say what you want and you got it.
Absolutely. Thanks for joining us, Alex. Appreciate it.